All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. We begin with new developments in the 2024 race. Two key members of Congress say they will decide early next year whether to run for Senator Mike Braun's seat. Braun has formed a gubernatorial campaign committee for that year. Now, here's what Congressman Jim Banks told us during an interview late last week.
Well, I'm taking a strong look at it. Mike Braun has been a strong conservative senator for our state, and Indiana deserves a strong conservative to take his place to represent the whole state of Indiana. I've served for 3 terms now. I'm going into my 4th term in the House. I've been a conservative leader. I chaired the largest conservative caucus. I've been an outspoken conservative on the most important issues of the day for Indiana and for our country. So I'm taking a strong look at it. My wife and I and our family will be talking about it over the holidays, and we plan to make an announcement very soon in the new year.
Meanwhile, Congresswoman Victoria Spartz said something similar in a release on Thursday. She says the Senate definitely could use more real people from the ground, not more D.C. creatures, but it's a huge undertaking to make it better. I have to decide how and where I can bring the most value, and we'll let you know for sure in January, February of next year. The next member of Indiana's congressional delegation is learning the ropes. Erin Houchin will succeed Trey Hollingsworth next month. She represents the 9th District, that's Southern Indiana, and she talked to our government reporter Garrett Berquist.
Let's welcome in Congresswoman-elect Erin Houchin. Congresswoman-elect, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about the transition from being a state lawmaker, which is your most recent background, to serving at the federal level.
Yeah, there's a lot of carryover. There's a lot of similarities between legislating at the state level and then moving on to the federal level. It's, the policies are a little bit different, but the structure, it's a much bigger scale, a lot more people. The committees are, much larger, but the work is largely very similar.
What are some of the key pieces of legislation that we can expect from you once you're sworn in January?
I'm going to be I'm hoping to get on the Financial Services Committee. Indiana has had a member of our delegation on that committee since at least the 113th Congress. We're entering the 118th. Congressman Hollingsworth, who I replaced, was a member of that committee. It deals with anything from data privacy to flood insurance to affordable housing, venture capital, just a lot. And particularly for my district, rural banking, which I think is underrepresented. So I hope to get on that committee. One of the things that I'd like to work on is just dialing back some of the bureaucracy and restoring the power and the balance of power between the branches of government. Over the years, we have seen legislatures and the Congress kind of cede their responsibility to agencies. And I'd like to start dialing some of that back.
What are some projects specific to the 9th District that you would like to see funded in the next federal budget?
I think one of the things that we're going to have to do is take a look at the flood insurance program. That is something that probably needs revamped, and we've not had the opportunity really to dig in and do that. So I do want to take a look at ways in which we can improve that system. And so that's something I'm going to look at. In terms of projects, I'd like to see us focus on trying to get more mental health facilities, inpatient treatment facilities. That's something that is vastly underrepresented in this area. I'm married to a prosecutor who's getting ready to be a judge, and countless times people have come to him and asked to please put their family member, their child in the criminal justice system to save their lives. We shouldn't have to resort to that to save lives. So I would like to see us place an emphasis on bed space for mental health treatment and substance abuse treatment.
A few Republicans have said they will not support Kevin McCarthy's bid for Speaker. Where do you fall on that? Do you support Kevin McCarthy's speakership bid?
I think Kevin McCarthy has certainly done everything that he should be doing to earn the gavel. I have had people reach out to me about supporting Representative Andy Biggs within the district, but I've also had people from the district reach out to me and ask for me to support Leader McCarthy. I can tell you that Leader McCarthy has put in the work. He has met with members of the Freedom Caucus for hours on end, making improvements to our rules process. And he also has gone around the country and helped us elect this majority. I think what I would, the position I would take is, my perspective is he's done a great job as our leader, as a candidate. I've watched him. I would want to give him an opportunity to take the gavel. However, I am very new to this process, and I don't know how it's going to play out. We do have members that are saying they're not going to vote for Leader McCarthy. I can tell you that Representative Andy Biggs has not reached out to me for my support in that, and I haven't seen him necessarily campaigning for that. But I am open to conversations about how to improve the process. My experience in the last few months has been that Leader McCarthy is certainly willing, and other leadership members are willing to have those conversations.
Some Republicans have called for greater congressional oversight regarding military aid to Ukraine. If you end up serving on a committee with that task, how do you plan to approach this?
Yeah, I do think we need to have greater oversight on the funds to Ukraine. I'd like to see us audit how those funds have been distributed and spent. Those are tax dollars of the American people that are going to support that effort. And I certainly think we need to support the Ukrainian people, but at the same time, we need to make sure that spending is happening in a responsible manner. So I would support auditing that spending.
The detention of Brittany Griner has drawn a lot of attention to the cases of other Americans being wrongfully detained overseas. Griner, of course, is now safely back in the United States. The James Foley Foundation has recommended several policy changes. Should Congress make changes to how the U.S. government communicates with families of wrongfully detained Americans, or how it organizes and conducts recovery efforts?
You know, I'm not sure how those conversations take place. What I can tell you is just my perspective, that I think that we shouldn't be trading, this so-called merchant of death for, I'm glad that we have an American citizen back home, but we've left a Marine behind. And I think that overall, it makes all Americans less safe if they're traveling to Russia. Because we've made this type of a trade. I think it just makes Americans overseas more vulnerable.
Congresswoman-elect Erin Houchin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, coming up, we take stock of a busy week in politics with Indiana's best political team. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics, as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Kip Tew and Republican Whitley Yates. Let's begin with something that we addressed at the beginning of the show. If you don't mind, Congressman Jim Banks says he strongly is considering a Senate run in 2024. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz also weighing a run. Whitley, how should we read their statements, and which of the two is a stronger candidate?
It's hard to say. The Indiana Republican Party has a strong bench of leadership and talent that could take that seat. I think that Congressman Banks has been in his position a lot longer. I think his positioning specifically on the committees that he sits on and his statewide penetration has an edge on Congresswoman Spartz.
Kip, Senator Todd Young took home nearly 60% of the vote last month. How do you turn that around with another election less than 2 years away?
Well, 2 years is a long time in politics, so I guess that's the best way to say it. Democrats have a lot of work to do between now and then for us to be competitive. I did note, though, this week that turnout in this off-year election in the state was pitiful, 20%, and Marion County in particular was the second worst county in the state, where a lot more Democrats reside than they do in the rest of the state. So we as a party really have to get our stuff together, if you will, if we want to be competitive. I think we can be competitive. Like Whitley says about her party, we do have a good bench. We have a lot of folks, I think, who could step up and do the job very well and who could campaign very well, but we have to give them the support.
I know we're 2 years out, but if we had to guess, and I want to ask both of you this question, Kip, we'll start with you. Who do you think is the front runner heading into 2024?
For United States Senate?
Yes.
Well, I think Jim Banks. He has a national following. He finished a close second for whip number 3 job in the United States Congress. So he has a national fundraising base, and he's been working on it for a couple of years. So I'd have to say he's the front runner.
Whitley, you're shaking your head. Yes.
I'd have to agree with Kip on that.
Okay. We'll see what happens. Hey, Attorney General Todd Rokita filed a pair of lawsuits against TikTok, and he cites data privacy and protecting minors from adult content. Now, Kip, given what we've learned about TikTok, is Rokita right to file these lawsuits in this particular case?
I think I rarely agree with Todd Rokita on about anything, but I do believe that the Chinese government is spying with TikTok all over the world. And lots of places are banning them. They're banned partially in Europe. They're banned in some other places. So I think that it's wise to be very, very cautious about the reach of that so-called social media platform. So in this instance, I don't know if I agree with the particulars, but I do agree with greater scrutiny and perhaps try and prevent TikTok from being able to do some of the things that they're doing.
So Whitley, I mean, it seems like every generation has something like this, rock and roll, violent video games. Is this just simply another case of unnecessary moral panic?
No, I wouldn't agree that TikTok and rock and roll are synonymous with each other, to be honest. I think that specifically this app is utilizing its heavy penetration in the United States to collect data on its citizens, whether we know it or not, and how they're using that data is we don't know, has yet to be seen. But to protect the children who are utilizing this platform, especially since it's explicitly marketed to them, is noble, and we should all be protecting our children, specifically when they're on social media, as we've seen how social media is impacting the social society of our schools and our children.
Is it also maybe Todd Rokita trying to get a national platform here, Kip?
Well, Todd Rokita is always trying to get attention. I think this is his latest attempt at being the center of attention, sort of not dissimilar to a certain president that is no longer president, thankfully.
Whitley, your thoughts on that?
I couldn't hear all of what he said. Could you give me the top line?
Well, I just want to get your thoughts on the question. Is it the Attorney General trying to make a name for himself nationally?
I find it interesting that every time Todd Rokita is doing his job, they accuse him of wanting to make a name for himself as opposed to just doing his job. I think that he's doing his job effectively. And I think that him pursuing this type of legislation and this type of legal action and lawsuit against TikTok is going to protect Hoosiers.
Fair enough. And he's not the only Attorney General across the country doing that. Good conversation here. We'll have much more to discuss on the other side of the break. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back Democrat Kip Two and Republican Whitley Yates. Let's turn now to this week's biggest political headline. WNBA star Brittney Griner safely home in the United States. Russian authorities released her in exchange for convicted Russian arms trafficker Viktor Bout. Kip, we still have at least 2 Americans detained in Russia. Did the Biden administration unfairly prioritize Griner over those Americans due to her status as a star athlete here?
Well, I think even Whelan's family said that Biden did the right thing. I know Republicans are complaining, but Republicans will complain about Joe Biden if he ties his shoes rather than wears loafers. I mean, they can't give him a break on anything at all. Whelan was captured under the Trump administration. He was there for 2 years, and there hasn't been a president in United States history who's been closer to Russia or Putin than Trump, and he couldn't get him out. So I think those things are those criticisms fall on pretty deaf ears. The president did what he could here. He successfully got her back, and I think all Americans should be happy about that.
And to Kip's point, Whitley, the Biden administration says it was Griner for boot or nothing. So did Republicans go too far in criticizing the deal that freed Griner?
I don't think that the Republicans went too far, but I do think that we need to acknowledge that anytime an American citizen is able to come home from any type of communist country, that it is something that we should be happy about. But what I will say is, thinking about intention and execution, thinking about the totality of our American citizens that are currently trapped over there in Russia, and creating a plan that is substantive to bring them back home is something that I think a president should do. And so the fact that he did do this, he should have expected to get some backlash when there are other people who may have been over there longer who have been asking and looking for the level of attention placed on their issue for the president to attend to.
You can't force, though, Vladimir Putin to give somebody up, though, right?
I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said, I mean, you can't force Vladimir Putin to give somebody up.
No, you can't. But if you're negotiating to have the surrender of American citizens back to their home country, I think instead of looking at just one, we should have looked at all of who we had and tried to create a deal that most benefited us. And I think that trading just one when we had others over there at a time like this did not necessarily do us justice, specifically for who we traded Brittany for.
Kip, your response.
Well, I mean, the response was what we said originally, which was the Biden administration tried to get them both, and Putin said no. It should have been Trump who got Whelan out, because Trump and Putin are pals, and he couldn't do it. So, Putin's using it for leverage for other things, and we just need to recognize it.
Okay. Well, closer to home now, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy still does not appear to have the support of 218 Republicans in his bid for Speaker, and he still faces challenges from the party's right wing. Whitley, Republicans will have only a slim majority, as you very well know. Does this signal trouble for the party's agenda in Congress?
I don't think that it seems trouble at all. To be honest, right now, the Republican Party is trying to figure out what is next. And with Speaker McCartney and his role, and if they want that level of leadership or that same style of leadership, is honestly up to those members of the House to decide. I don't think that it's alarming at this point yet. And I think that they are trying to decide the best direction of leadership to take this party in and to take the House in.
Whitley, I know you can't see Kip, but he was pretty animated when you were commenting there. So, and you're smiling now, Kip, so I know you want to respond. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, she's sticking to the talking points, but anybody that has two eyes can see that they've got a huge problem. If the person that they nominated can't get to 218, that's a huge problem for the Republican Party. We have, being fully transparent, Chris Sinema from Arizona this week announced that she's switching to independent. So both parties have problems on both sides of the hill, and it just speaks to the issues of how difficult governing is these days, because Americans are so dissatisfied. So luckily on the Democratic side, she says she's going to continue to caucus with the Democrats to the extent that committee chairmanships and those types of things are going to stay in Democratic hands. But Kevin McCarthy right now has got a big problem, because he can't get to 218, and he's got to get there, or he's not going to be Speaker.
So, Kip, should Democrats work with Republicans to try to get a more moderate Speaker?
Potentially. Right now, I think conversations are happening. I don't know what to expect as going to be the outcome of that. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big deal.
You brought up the Sinema news. Are you worried about Manchin?
No, I'm not.
Whitley, I want to get your thoughts on Sinema.
I mean, I just think it's interesting that the first line of defense is to work with the Democrats to help us pick a speaker. That is the absolute opposite of what the Republican Party needs to do. Nancy Pelosi was not working with any of the Republicans. She was actually in total opposition of almost all of them who didn't subscribe to her agenda. So I don't think that we should be working with the Democrats to try and figure out who our speaker should be and who should represent us, because that's not what they would do. And they definitely weren't working with us. So,
and your thoughts, Whitley, on Sinema becoming an independent?
I can't hear you.
Your thoughts on Sinema becoming an independent?
I think that this was primed to happen. As we saw, there was a lot of contention with some of the votes and how people were voting. Manchin and Sinema have kind of just been these two outliers, I would say, within the Democratic Party. Not surprised on the independent part, as Bernie Sanders is also an independent, but I don't think it actually means what people think that it means, which is more of an alignment with the Republican Party.
30 seconds left, Kip. Take us home.
Well, I think she wants to be an independent, and she kind of has voted that way. So I'm not that surprised that she made this move. I think she was in great peril for re-election or being nominated as a Democrat in the Arizona primary, and so she did it for political preservation. But it is a dilemma for Democrats. Are they going to run somebody in a Democratic as a Democrat and split the vote three ways? It remains to be seen. It'll be a big deal in 24 for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a busy week. Kip, Whitley, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. We'll be right back. And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.